Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Firstly, I just want to give a big thank you to today's sponsor, G2A. So G2A is an online marketplace for digital products. It sells gift cards, games, and software from places like Microsoft and Adobe, and many more other places. It's basically like Amazon, but for digital games and software. And right now they are doing a summer playground sale. There are some massive discounts on the biggest games, and also up for sale are Steam gift cards, so you can get a discounted one of those and then buy whatever you want on Steam. There are also a bunch of discounted Tinder gift cards in this sale. So if you've ever wanted to get Tinder Gold so you can see who's liked you back on Tinder but have thought it is too pricey, now would be a good time to try it out at a really good discount. So click the link at the top of the description box or in the pinned comment to get access to the summer playground sale. Anyway, so in today's video I'm going to be talking about the TV show Glee. You all have seemed to like my past videos on Glee, so I decided to make another video that would focus on more of the cast as well as a few more things that were going on behind the scenes. So assuming you know what Glee is about, it all started in 2005 when a guy named Ian Brennan came up with the idea for it. He first pitched it as a movie, but didn't gain any traction doing that. Eventually, through a friend of a friend, he got put in touch with Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk. Ian told Ryan and Brad the idea he had, and then it was Brad who suggested that they make it into a TV show instead. So they reworked the script into a TV pilot and then pitched it to Fox. Fox then picked it up, released a pilot, and then it became massively successful.
Of course, I'm talking about the phenomenon that is Glee!
The biggest television show in the world at a certain point.
And this is like nothing, absolutely nothing television has seen before.
The songs and the albums from the show were breaking records. The show itself and multiple actors from the show won Golden Globes for their roles. The show also gave a chance to some actors who hadn't previously been given the chance to shine.
It made me feel seen. Yeah. I wasn't booking roles like that. Like, that was a tailor-made role for someone that was like me, that really never got to, be on many television shows.
Because this was like the first person that would let me work.
They got the opportunity to perform for Oprah and on The Voice, which was a pretty important moment for Amber Riley, who played Mercedes, because years earlier she was rejected from a different singing competition by Simon Cowell. They even got to perform at the White House, and Amber sang the national anthem for the president and his family. There was even a board game made about the show. And one of the biggest things the cast participated in was doing 2 tours. The first tour started because there was such a huge demand for it.
The reaction was so extreme that we said yes, and we were only going to do 3 shows. That was it. And then we put it on sale and they all sold out, and then we added more dates and then they sold out, and today we put an extra show in LA and it sold out in 22 seconds.
The first tour was in 2010 in North America. They did 10 shows across 4 cities, and collectively 70,000 people came to watch. The cast remained in character as they performed, and they sang a number of songs from the show. And the performances stayed pretty accurate to how they were depicted on the show. Rachel was in the crowd singing Don't Rain on My Parade. Mercedes sang Bust Your Windows with a car on stage with a bunch of background dancers. And the cast sang Jump with a bunch of trampolines on stage. Chris Colfer, who played Kurt, injured himself during the tour, in part because of the trampolines.
You've hurt your foot, how? Oh, we just did our US tour, and here's this lovely bandage for you to see. In the tour, we did our Lady Gaga number, and I was dancing in 10-inch heels for a night, and then jumping on the trampoline, and I think it just a combination of both, and I ripped some tissue. And
it wasn't until after the fact that they realized that the trampolines were probably too hazardous to have on stage.
They had fucking trampolines on our set at our theater tours. You know how we did the mattress episode?
Oh, yeah.
So they brought actual trampolines on our stages, and we would do a trampoline number where Harry and I were back flipping on stage. I'm like, That's so hazardous.
Like, it's like a circus. It was a circus. You guys were like circus performers.
Yes.
But the cast coped with the first tour relatively well.
So how's the Glee tour been so far for you?
It's been good.
That all changed during the second tour. The second tour they did in 2011 was much larger than the first. They were to do a total of 41 shows across the United States, Canada, England, and Ireland. Not only was that a daunting prospect for most of the cast, but they were expected to do that tour with just a 3-day break between the ending of production for season 2 and the tour. Things got off to a bad start when they were introduced how they would be getting transported around the countries. They were going to be flown around in a private jet that they nicknamed Thomas the Stank Engine because it smelt so bad.
I think that's something we should tell people because they don't realize that we did that whole world tour on a safari plane.
I think, yeah, please tell us your experience with Thomas the Stank Engine.
I always tried to sit to the front because the back
was
of that plane
terrifying.
It's so bumpy.
But it smelled terrible.
Not only that, but it was extremely bumpy to the point that some of the cast members just decided to fly commercial. One time, Leah Michelle went flying into the air when they hit turbulence.
Oh my god, do you remember when we hit turbulence and Leah was walking from the bathroom to her seat? And she went flying into the air.
Overall, the second tour was very exhausting for most of them, and it caused most of them to reach their breaking points.
And like, we're like, what's wrong with them? Like, what? You're like, yep, the girls are, like, we'd get reports, like, from Megs and from Telly, like, the girls are crying. They don't want to be here. I remember saying to one of the girls, like, what's going on? They're like, we're just tired. We miss our families. We want to go home.
Jenna Oshkowitz, who played Tina, talked on a podcast about how it was easy for some people and hard for others. The ones it was easy for were Kevin McHale, who played Artie, and Mark Sorling, who played Puck. They were super keen to even do a third tour.
This is, like, absolutely, if I could pick a career, anything I could do in my life, this is it.
You guys want to go on tour again, or what?
Yeah.
I was always pushing for it, but the girls were like, no.
Really?
Yeah, really.
But the majority of them were in favor of them not doing another tour because it was just too difficult for them. And on top of the tours, they also had to deal with Twitter. So it quickly became the go-to place to discuss all things Glee. So it played a role in helping grow the show's audience.
It was like the first TV show, I think, that actually grew its audience via Twitter.
So because of that, the main cast members were required to sign up to Twitter.
Definitely. I mean, we were very much encouraged to use it, and it always felt funny to me.
Because we don't really Twitter about our lives. We only really Twitter about Glee.
Twitter literally became a thing when Glee started. We were required to get Twitter accounts and live tweet during the show.
At first, it seemed like the cast had a lot of fun with Twitter. They would often interact with each other, not only tweeting about the show, but also tweeting about what life was like on set. One time, they had a Twitter fight where each of them posted one or more photos in some kind of fighting position. But much like how Twitter is today, things didn't remain fun for very long. Amber became the target of body shamers on Twitter. In 2022, Amber spoke with Page 6, where she said she suffered so much during her time on Glee. She said people always had an opinion on her body, and it became a war zone online for people to pick over. She also addressed the body shamers when Glee was still airing by posting a video.
Why does me being fat offend so many people? Is it because I'm confident and I'm fly and I'm sexy? Do my thighs offend? Does my stomach offend? Does my big juicy ass offend? Why? Why? Let my big ass live. I let y'all live. I love all colors, shapes, and sizes. So, just so you know, when you come on here and you call me fat, it's not an insult, dummy. My ass is fat, and the fellas love it. And so do I.
Chris and Darren Criss, who played Blaine, also got it pretty hard on Twitter as well. Fans of the show shipped their relationship on the show so hard that it became toxic. There were a group of fans on Twitter who wished their romance on the show would be a romance in real life. When those fans found out that Darren and Chris had relationships In real life, those fans endlessly harassed them. They were trying to destroy their relationships so that Darren and Chris could be together.
Had it just stayed on Twitter, had it just been some childhood, childish Twitter bullying, it would have been one thing. But no, it was like oh my God, what they started, they got a hold of my boyfriend's email and they signed him up for all kinds of crazy websites.
Illegal things?
Illegal things.
Oh, they shut down his blog?
They shut down, he had a blog from college that they got shut down. And one time I got a tweet from someone that said, you need to check your boyfriend's emails. And so I was like, Will? You want to check your emails? And they'd signed him up for ashleymadison.com, which is a straight cheating website. So it's like they were almost there. They're almost there, but they tried to get him fired from his job at the time.
It was for real.
Yeah, he was working for Robert Zemeckis at the time, and his creative executives got all these emails and messages from these people saying lies about him, trying to get him fired, and his mom and his sisters got boxes of hair in the mail, with notes that say how dare you be part of this lie.
Yeah.
We know the truth. And it drove me nuts.
Chris and Leah also got into some hot water on Twitter. I already went over this in my video about Ryan Murphy, so I'll only talk about it quickly now. Basically, on the show, it came to the point where Chris and Leah's characters were going to be graduating. So Ryan Murphy did an interview confirming that they would be leaving the show when they graduated. But unbeknownst to the fans of the show, Ryan had discussed with Leah and Chris that they would be getting a spin-off show that would focus on their lives in New York. And then after that interview with Ryan was published, Leah took to Twitter to basically confirm what Ryan said. And then Chris did an interview with Access Hollywood where he said he found out he was leaving the show through Twitter. And then Ryan wasn't happy about that because he had been keeping Chris and Leah in the loop about what was going to be happening when they were going to leave the show after they graduated. Then Ryan did a follow-up interview with Deadline where he said because of that, they decided to not go ahead with the spin-off show. But yeah, as we know, Leah and Chris didn't end up leaving Glee. They just didn't end up getting that spin-off show because of what they said and what they saw on Twitter. But Twitter wasn't all bad. It also gave fans of the show a chance to share their coming out story with Chris because they knew he could relate.
And I hear that you get a lot of mail from young kids feeling very validated that you're playing a character that is homosexual.
I get hundreds and hundreds of messages from Facebook and Twitter from these kids who've said that after watching the show, they've decided to be honest with themselves and come out to their friends and family.
And also, it is likely the cast would have signed up to Twitter on their own terms anyway, but if that was the case, then they would have been able to just leave whenever they wanted to. But because they were required to sign up to Twitter to live tweet about the show as it was coming out, they couldn't just leave. And the effects that Twitter had on them are still something that they talk about in interviews to this day. But anyways, Twitter may have been the catalyst for destroying opportunities, like in the case of Chris and Leah, but Glee itself was opening opportunities for a whole bunch of other aspiring actors. A spin-off reality TV show called The Glee Project was created. On that show, 12 contestants on Season 1 and 14 on Season 2 were competing for a 7-episode guest starring role on Glee. The show was about finding somebody that Ryan could feel inspired to write a character about. Over 10 episodes, the contestants singing, dancing, and acting were assessed, and then at the end of each episode, Ryan Murphy and a couple of other significant production members decided on who went home. Like any reality show, it did have its flaws. The show was supposed to be about individuality and uniqueness, but the people in charge on the show kept trying to force the contestants into boxes they didn't belong in, like trying to make someone more sexier or trying to make somebody more religious. And also, the only contestants that Ryan got to see on a one-on-one basis basis was the bottom 3. So essentially, a contestant could excel at the competition portion of the game and never meet Ryan until the very end of the show, which by that point, Ryan may not be inspired enough to write a character about them, so you'd kind of get screwed over by being too good. In recent years, the casts have spoken out about what the conditions were like. In an interview with Insider, Abraham Lim talked about how there was a lot of trauma and the cast trauma bonded, and the bedrooms were apparently very makeshift. They didn't have air conditioning, and while they were living in them, they started falling apart. When it came to the winners and even the runners-up getting the guest starring roles they were promised, they ended up staying on the show far longer than the episode count they were promised. So that was a plus, even if they did end up just becoming glorified extras by the end of it. But at least they were kept in a job, I guess. But through all the new additions to the cast, the tours, the long hours on set, they all seemed to be genuine friends and love each other. And aside from a few rumored issues on set, they all seemed to remain friends until the show ended in 2016. Then many fans of the show were excited when in May 2020, Ryan Murphy posted on Instagram the potential plot to a Glee reboot. In the comments he said the original cast would all come back. While Ryan was most certainly joking about all of that, it caused a lot of buzz amongst the Glee fandom. But that buzz quickly stopped. A month after Ryan made those posts, Leah was exposed for many things, and that was when Ryan deleted his posts about a reboot. Despite seeming very lovely with the other cast members when the cameras were on, Leah was actually very difficult on the set of Glee. And after Leah was exposed, it was made very clear that even if Ryan wanted to do a reboot with the original cast, they would not want to do one. I've already done a separate video on Leah, so I won't get into it too much in this video, but yeah, a number of cast members spoke about their bad experiences with Leah, and that caused us to look behind the facade of happiness and see that there have been many reasons why the cast would not want to return for a reboot for a while now. The first Glee cast member who is unlikely to do a reboot anytime soon is Jenna. She was in every season of Glee and a part of the original 6 Glee Club members. After the show ended, she wrote a book called Choosing Glee. But if you've seen the show, you will know that Glee did not choose her. When she got the role of Tina, Ryan told her that he didn't know much about Tina yet.
Ryan Murphy said, I don't know much about Tina yet. We haven't figured her out yet.
And that's pretty much how it stayed. We never really learned much about Tina. We meet the parents of all of the original 6 Glee Club members, except for Tina's. In an interview with Billboard in 2011, she talked about what she envisioned Tina's parents to be like, but that never came to fruition, and that became a point of frustration for Jenna because they just weren't writing for her.
That like there were just so many of us that the storylines weren't happening for me, and I was getting really frustrated. And like something had to change.
Like you weren't connecting with the character, you weren't.
Well, they weren't writing for me, so like I would have like one line in a script,
like,
and
the
you
point?
sit there,
Why
but
am
you
I here?
have to be there because you're all in the quiet room.
Her character was just often at the receiving end of stereotypical Asian jokes.
Asian. Other Asian.
Got an Asian hat.
Tina blowing away. Asian horror movie. Asian #1.
Which she wasn't a huge fan of.
They would be like, oh, Asian and the other Asian.
Totally.
Right. And I just wondered, like, I'd always laugh uncomfortably because on one hand, it is funny.
It's so wrong though, right?
It's so wrong, and yet it happened. I mean, that is the way some people approach it.
And during one of the rare opportunities where she was given the chance to sing a solo, she was required to sing Gangnam Style. That didn't sit right with her because while she may have been Korean, she was adopted at 3 months old and grew up in New York, so she didn't speak much Korean at all.
And you did the puppet. Psy as well, right? Gangnam Style? Yeah. Oh, God. That show was pretty tone deaf.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like
At the beginning of the show, she was this quiet goth girl with a stutter, but as the show progressed, she turned into the complete opposite. And there was never really any indication of why that transformation took place. It just seemed like overnight she had completely switched. And when she did make the switch, her character became very unlikable and annoying to the other characters and to the fans of the show.
One of our own has turned into a mean, bitter, and angry person.
Tina.
Tina.
That'd be Tina.
She didn't used to be like this.
And there were also other issues outside of her character development. She was originally left off of the credits of the pilot episode, and during the second Glee tour, they also filmed a movie of the tour to accompany it, and much like the pilot episode credits, her character was left off of the poster for the movie. And her solo performance from the tour, where she was front and center, was also cut from the movie. Her and her other cast members later joked about how they cut it because they looked too tired.
And then it got cut out of the movie.
You guys
And then they cut us out the movie.
Yeah, that's right.
We look too tired, is what they said. That's what I heard. They said that we cut this because we all look too tired.
But yeah, she did not have much of a presence at all in the movie. I actually came across an article that talked about 5 things that you won't see in the movie, and her character is listed as one of the things you won't see. On her podcast, she talked about how it was a running theme, how she would just be forgotten.
I actually, when we were watching the early drafts of the pilot, like cuts, they left my name off the credits, and for the entire time until we got to work, I thought I was getting fired for sure. I was like, they left me off the credits, I'm fired. But that ended up being a running theme that they would just forget about me sometimes.
Oh,
so
it was this weird
thing.
It was a really weird thing. Like, we had the Glee 3D movie poster.
And they left me off the poster, and they cut my number out of it,
Nobody
and they didn't
told
tell
her.
me.
Mm-hmm.
So we were at the premiere, I was with all my people, and they cut it out.
And yeah, overall, she just felt underappreciated. In 2020, with an interview with Variety, Amber Riley revealed that she was told that her and other actors of color were seen as a little more disposable. So Jenna may not have been given a moment to shine because she wasn't seen as valuable as the white actors. And like Jenna, Amber was left feeling as though her character did not get the justice she deserved.
Like my character never got its just due. And that made me feel like I'm only valuable doing one thing, coming in at the end of the song and belting, you know what I'm saying, or saving it, as some people would say. And because of that, like, they always, always pitting you against the main character and seemingly winning, but never really getting your shot. Those kind of things, like, that affected me. I internalized those things, and it made it really hard for me to encourage myself or really see myself.
Another member of the cast who didn't have the best experience was Chris Colfer. He's now referring to his experience on Glee as PTS Glee.
I'm working on some PTS Glee.
Yeah, it's PTS Glee.
PTS Glee.
Yeah.
You've probably heard it by this point, but Chris's part of Kurt was actually written specifically for him. He originally auditioned for the role of Artie, but they thought he was so talented that they wrote a whole separate role for him.
That night we got a call from an agent saying that they liked what I presented so much that they were going to write in a role for me.
And then after Glee came out, he was one of the standouts from the show.
You are one big overnight sensation.
He was so much of a sensation that he won a Golden Globe for his role. So how can someone who achieved so much through the show and made such an impact on the show now consider their experience traumatic? Well, there were issues for Chris right from the beginning. When they wrote Kurt as a gay character, Chris was not out yet.
So they wrote the role for me, but I was not out to anyone. I was not out in high school. I was barely out to myself. And then, like, suddenly, like, I'm literally going from a nobody in this small town where I'm too afraid to admit the truth about myself, to then suddenly, being a openly gay teenager on network television.
When he was doing his first round of press for Glee, the publication The Advocate misunderstood something that Chris said and then published a story saying that Chris was gay.
Because what happened was during like the first round of press for the first season, I did an interview with publication. I'll say a publication, and they asked me questions about the character, about the show. Not one single question about me. And the article that was published was basically like, Chris Colfer, this out and proud young kid, and I was like 18, and I hadn't even had the conversation with my parents or myself, or so it was just terrifying, and and I was devastated because it was just I wasn't ready. I think it's like I think the whole thing with the what's his name from Heartbreakers?
Yes.
The show that thing that just happened right now.
Heartstopper.
Yeah, that absolutely broke my heart because essentially the same thing happened to me about 15 years ago, and we were the same age.
Right. I immediately thought of you when that happened.
When it happened to me, it was very much like I deserved it.
Yeah.
It was crickets, and it was I deserved it.
Like what you signed up for. Like
right, I know what I signed up for. It was obvious, so therefore I had no reason to be upset about it.
That's a big thing.
Obviously, the writers of Glee couldn't have known the implications of writing him as a gay character could have had on his personal life, but it is a big reason why he doesn't want to revisit that part of his life. In my video about Ryan Murphy, I already talked about the insults that were directed towards Chris in general, but I didn't mention the insults directed at Chris's singing specifically. After the show ended, he has talked a number of times about the jokes that were directed at his singing voice.
They always laugh when I go into falsetto. And I would cry a little inside. I think on the show, like my character's always made fun of for singing and always had to compete with, really powerful female performers. So I guess I got a little subconscious. I thought, oh well, I'm not that great of a singer if there's always being a joke made about it.
So yeah, it's not surprising that Chris refers to his experience as PTS Glee. So now I want to talk about Dianna Agron, who played Quinn. I already talked about her a little bit in my video about Ryan Murphy, but there are some extra things that I would like to add and some existing things that I would like to expand upon a little bit. So Dianna was actually the last person cast for Glee. The reason for that is because her character was only made to accompany the character of Sue Sylvester, and Sue's character was a late addition to the script of the show. Basically, when Ryan submitted the pilot script to Fox, it didn't include Sue. So then Fox got back to him and said that the show needs a villain, and that is when Sue was created. And then subsequently Quinn was created to accompany Sue. They actually already started filming the pilot episode before they had even cast Quinn. When they did find the person to play Quinn, they were very happy that it was Dianna.
Her whole studio network situation was unlike everyone else. She seriously sang in the office next to me, and she sang a couple lines and she acted great, and we sent off that tape and everyone saw that tape and signed off on her, and boy did we really luck out with her.
Dianna later spoke to Interview magazine, where she revealed that they actually did have one issue with her. Apparently, the people in charge of casting thought that she looked too innocent, so they told her to come back with straightened hair and dressed sexier. So she did that and got the role.
And they didn't know at first. My hair was curly. I think I looked a little bit older, and they had me come back. I had to straighten my hair in a Starbucks bathroom really quick because I had to get to the office.
All they really had planned for her character at that point was for her to be a Regina George type of mean girl character, but with a religious edge to her. And they weren't entirely sure what the future of Quinn would be, but she eventually ended up deviating from the straight-haired evil character they had planned for her. And it wasn't necessarily because that's how she was written. The change happened because she steered the character that way as an actor. And Ryan Murphy had this to say about it in an interview with The Rolling Stone. When we cast Dianna as Quinn, she ruined the part for me. She humanized it, she can cry at the drop of a hat, so now her character has a conscience, a soul, and great vulnerability. And that is a compliment, even if it is worded a little weirdly. But that, along with a handful of other things, led people to believe that Ryan did not like Dianna. Another suspected reason is because Dianna approached the showrunners and the directors of Glee that she wasn't really liking where her character was being taken.
We got to the point, second and third season of Glee, where you're like, not disrespectfully, but, you know, if there was a director saying, well, I think your character is doing this right now, you would really want to ask them why and make sure that they had reasons that kind of fit with this character that you've been building, because not everybody's seen every episode. You know, most directors wouldn't have seen more than one or two of a show unless they really were fans of it or really wanted to, you know, overly prepare, this or that.
Then in 2012, Ryan made a new show called The New Normal. In it, the main character, Brian, was putting together a play, and it kind of seemed to parody Glee in some ways. The play consisted of characters that had a striking likeness to the characters in Glee. There is a guy in a wheelchair whose name is Devin, and the guy who plays a guy in a wheelchair on Glee, his name is Kevin. There's a teacher's pet character who resembled the character that Leah Michelle played on Glee, and her character's name is Clea. The guy who was putting together the play was Brian, you know, like Ryan.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
And there was a blonde cheerleader character whose name was Bryn, which is similar to Quinn, who was a blonde cheerleader as well. And that character had issues with the script in the play.
Hi, Bri.
Hi.
Hate to interrupt, but my character would never say this stuff.
Oh, so you don't like what's written? Maybe you're like what I wrote. Interior basement night. Bryn in her cheer uniform lays tied up on a cold table. A crazy hunchback enters and stabs her several times in the face. We cut to the hospital and sure enough, Bryn survives, but needs a face transplant. Enter Demi Lovato, who would do it for cheap.
I'll do it as written.
And Jane Lynch talked about how she knows when Ryan has an issue with somebody based on what's in the script.
No one's better than Ryan at taking a person, looking at them, finding their Achilles heel, or the kind of the overriding characteristic of them on like either a physical level, like Matt's hair, or on an emotional level, and we'll read it in the next script. Like I know when he's mad at somebody. I can tell by reading the script.
That's so true.
So it would not surprise me at all if that is how Ryan chose to retaliate. But yeah, that's just how Sid sees it. But yeah, that is pretty much it for this video. And the outro is back by popular demand. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to drink water, be nice to animals, and let's take a moment of silence for everyone who has to deal with Karens. And I will see you in my next video.